Axing the tax.
And we should all be immensely proud of our country's standing on the world stage.
Keir Starmer flip-flops.
Step right up, step right up. It's conference season, guys. And the Tories are the first of the big parties to showcase their achievements and exciting new policy ideas for how to run the country or fix the country they've been running into the ground over the last 13 years. Imagine that, though. Imagine having to get up on stage and celebrate the thing you've made a mess of for the last 10 years. Must be like having marriage counselling at your anniversary party. But yeah, 13 years they've been in power. You know what that means? There were 10-year-olds in 2010 who are 23 now. So all of their formative years would have been spent, with the backdrop of this Tory neglect and financial mismanagement, just cuts and crumbling schools. Coming of age while suffering that lot. Christ. Imagine trying to have a good time with all that going on as the backdrop. It'd be like f***ing to Leonard Cohen. Anyway, how do they do this? How does the governing party celebrate itself and present its new and exciting ideas as, ways to improve our democracy in 2023? How do they do that? And the answer? By turning Manchester into a veritable Fashionberry. That's right, guys. Before the conference has even started, Greater Manchester Police had been asked to pull over a coachload of NHS protesters. Roads were shut, so others couldn't get anywhere near the venues.
So all I'm going to do is amend my Section 14 conditions. This is not a designated protest site where you are.
No, we don't need a designated protest site. This isn't Russia. We don't need a designated protest site.
Indeed, gather round, all ye fans of Gaul. Gaulcaholics, if you will.
Free speech belongs to every citizen.
Free press is vital in holding. The Secretary says freedom of speech will be prioritised over taking offence.
The UK has robust protections for freedom of speech.
The libertarian rights are here now to tell you that your free speech and right to protest is actually a bit much.
Designated protest site.
I love this idea that we have to legislate and manage protests now. Like, you're protesting. You're disrupting. The whole point is that you're there shouting, bringing it to their door. You're waving placards outside the factory. We won't stand for this. You're laying down, blocking a runway. Like, we're here to make a statement. Now you try to make your voice known and the police are like, I'm afraid this isn't a designated protest site. I've got the provisions here and you are in breach of Section 14B. Just as a side note, right, I wonder what it would take for a policeman to actually go detective on this, pan out a bit, like look at the reasons for the protest and the ripple effects that have caused it. Like, what would it take for the policeman to go, whoa, hang on. My Section 14 notice says that I can impose restrictions to prevent serious public disorder. But if Tory policies have created public disorder, like crumbling schools and corpses in hospital corridors, not to mention caused this protest here by failing to adequately represent the interests of the public, I suppose the Tories are really the actual cause of all of this. I suppose to prevent serious public disorder, I should Section 14 the government. No, that would never happen. We're talking about a class of intellectual who, like, the only time I've ever seen them think outside the box is when they're kettling the rest of us in one. Anyway, Greater Manchester Police said, we will always seek to facilitate the right to peacefully protest, but we will not stand for any incidents of intimidation or abuse. Officers will take swift, appropriate action against anyone breaking the law. Right. Yeah. Intimidation is unacceptable, said the state trooper as he pulled over my vehicle for no reason. Anyway, for those who could get near the venue, expectations were high. The buzz was, the buzz was, I don't know if there was a buzz. It could have been a wasp dying out first week in October and all. Yeah, I don't think there was a buzz. I think it was a wasp. But the conference kicked off with party chairman Greg Hands doing his flip-flop bit.
And ladies and gentlemen, these are available. Anybody who likes this association of Sir Keir Starmer with flip-flops, I have these available at the Conservative shop outside for just £16.99. Also online at conservatives.com, your own pair of Sir Keir Starmer flip-flops.
And hilarious jape that has only gotten funnier the 137 times he's tried it. I mean, look, I'm not judging. You know, as a stand-up, it's inspiring to see someone so committed to making a joke work. And honestly, it really is only second to his "there isn't any money" notes bit. But anyway, Greg, just, tired material aside, a little note to you, and indeed to the rest of the pro-business aspiration party. Just a little tip. If you want to sell footwear at the Conservative Conference, A, it's autumn. Nobody's buying flip-flops. And B, do some market research, lads. Like, given how dystopian everything's getting, and the climate's changing, blocks of flats are going up in flames, concrete in hospitals and schools is falling to pieces. The West is on the way out. But don't worry, it's holding open the door for old Blighty, like, you first, sweetheart. Like, everything's so screwed, Greg. All I'm saying is everything's so messed up, right? If you want to sell footwear at the conference, I really think for the upcoming season, you might find a bigger market for these. Official CCHQ post-apocalyptic nomad boots. Also appearing were cabinet heavyweights Grant Shapps and James Cleverly. God, this is the worst festival ever. I'd rather be at fire. Of course, Shapps was made Defence Secretary earlier this year.
Sky sources understand that Grant Shapps will be replacing Ben Wallace as the new Defence Secretary.
In one of the Conservative Party's most impressive commitments to diversity so far. Firstly, for giving a senior cabinet role to someone so obviously cognitively challenged. But second, for embracing the concept of job sharing. And where the Defence Secretary's job is to defend against aggression, the Foreign Secretary's is seemingly to appease it. And I guess somewhere in between those two things, we find peace. Anyway, there was much to catch up on from fact-check Foreign Sec James Cleverly.
While he was answering questions on integrity, your own Conservative press office was pretending to be a fact-check service.
Whose year has seen him brag about having tough conversations with China, only to come away bugged and spied on. I'm going to have tough conversations with China, guys. Like, does he mean tough conversations like he has problems with his communication skills? Is that what he means? I'm gonna get tough on them, just hold me back. And immediately flies home to a parliamentary spying scandal. And his response to it was like,
We have to have a pragmatic, sensible working relationship with China.
Like, you go out there and you're like, I'm gonna give them a piece of my mind. They completely mug you off, and your response to it is like, if you keep this up, I'll be forced to bombard you with unrequited friendship. We've got to work with them. They can be a partner for good. I mean, it's not dissimilar to how Saudi Arabia butchered that journalist and cleverly gave them a bruising, punishing label of what was it again?
James Cleverly says Saudis are our strategic partners.
I mean, he's kind of right. He is. Like, we do have to work with them. Because no matter what the few attendees in the lecture hall might believe when he tells them,
My view of Britain's standing in the world has never been clearer. People want to see us. People care about what we say. People admire what we stand for. But perhaps most importantly, people respect what we do.
The reality is, we are just a tiny little island. We're a dainty 18-year-old boy who's just arrived at the jail and all the different prison gangs just there, just looking us up and down like a piece of meat, trying to decide amongst themselves which one is going to tear him to pieces first.
Far from being left on the sidelines, we remain right at the heart of things. And we should all be immensely proud of our country's standing on the world stage.
We are absolutely not a dwindling influence. We're very important. Like, I don't know, like maybe if we were part of a geopolitical trade bloc, maybe if it had like a EU army, maybe if it had a combined market that China needed to do business with, needed to negotiate with. You know, maybe then it wouldn't be like, oh, we have to work with, then we would just literally be working with them. It'd just be equals pequals then, sort of thing, right? Whereas right now, it feels a little bit more like, are you okay, Joey? What are these bruises? Has your stepfather been beating you again? Yeah, but it's okay, Mr. Peterson. I have to work with my stepdad. You what? Yeah, I'm gonna negotiate with him. Like, maybe if he just beats me on the weekends, you know, to de-stress from the week, I could still do soccer practice by Thursday. What, Joy, you shouldn't have to do that. Or maybe he could just leave leg day for Friday? Anyway, from JC to Hunt to Shaps to Hands, it seemed from all the opening speeches, the Tories had much to celebrate. The SNP were bad. Labour in Wales were awful.
Londoners are starting to see through it, and we have a brilliant candidate in Susan Hall who will, on the 2nd of May, prove to Sadiq Khan that actually Sadiq can't.
So it was strange to hear and see that so few people were up for joining the party, so to speak. Because there was row after row of empty seats, tweet after tweet, mocking the low attendance. Even the Daily Mail's Dan Hodges remarked, I've been to almost every major party conference since 1997. I've never seen anything like Manchester 2023. It's a ghost town. Like, Cleverly's speech was half full, and so was Shaps, and restaurants and cafes just empty. Nando's, Coates, everywhere just deserted. I was going to give it 10 or 20 minutes more before Rishi Sunak got confused and announced another Eat Out to Help Out scheme. Have him walk round the corner with a couple of Fantas and a half chicken. To be fair, if you saw Rishi Sunak waiting tables in Nando's now, that could potentially be quite profitable. Because A, how's he going to take payment? Like, he can't work card machines. Like, we know that now. And B, I just like put him in close. I'd be like, oi, listen, I've got 10 face masks in the back of my pocket. I heard you might be in the market. Yeah, it's just sign that. Yeah, that's £30 million. Yeah, oh, thanks. Cheers, Rish. Anyway, the speeches, the keynote, the welcome on stage, the audit, like everything was just empty. But still, speeches-wise, could have gone worse. Good old Larry. But yeah, I personally like the idea that, you know, the empty rows, the scarce attendance. I like the idea that this was all a piece of performance art, you know, where Conservative MPs deliberately stayed away to sort of portray the idea of them vacating their seats at the next general election. This year, the Conservative slogan is long-term decisions for a brighter future, which feels less like an accurate description of what they're offering and more like the tagline from a white van installing solar panels, which kind of makes it all the more bizarre, doesn't it? Because it just draws attention to the fact that they've watered down net zero, they've abandoned this phase of HS2, we're facing decades of sewage in the rivers, in the seas. Long-term decisions for a brighter future. Like, it's just the opposite of what they're actually offering, isn't it? Long-term decisions for a brighter future. Like, HS2 gone, net zero. A little advice to CCHQ. You might not want to sell people long-term solutions for a brighter future at the same time as you're withdrawing them. Honestly, this whole conference is just back to front, you know? Like, you're hyping up long-term solutions at the time that you're canning HS2. You're talking about a brighter future at the same time as you're killing the planet. It's free speech, but banned protest. It's flip-flops, but for the winter. Like, here's a question for anyone that's gone to Conservative Party conference, any Tory members, any MPs, any Tory... Here's a question for you. Are you all on drugs? Because that is the only way any of this makes sense, is if you're all so gacked up, it's affecting your faculties. It's getting you a bit too G'd up over nonsense. Like, honestly, like, I watched the Liz Truss speech this afternoon. I was like, Is there anyone in the Conservative Party who hasn't been infected with the coke mine virus? Coke mine virus.
Calm down, calm down.
And those weren't the only contradictions on display, as the conference experienced an unpleasant flare-up of Michael Gove.
Yes, no, I would like to see the tax burden reduced before the next election.
Indeed, Gove, Truss, David Davis, Simon Clarke. Like, it's only been 12 months since this party crashed the markets through uncosted taxing, and yet there is no shortage of Conservative MPs barking from the sidelines about how they need to cut taxes. So you want to cut taxes? Yes, right. Okay, can you show me you're working this time? It's very, very important. Show me how you are going to pay for these tax cuts. Don't change the subject. Like, honestly, it's incredible. Open up a paper, read a review of Liz Truss's speech. There'll be words like electric atmosphere. Liz Truss means business. A return to low-tax Conservative values. Go on, Lizzie. And yeah, it's the same Liz Truss who cut those taxes, who sent the markets crazy, and magicked your mortgage from affordable payments into a ballooning trust fund. And the entire conference is like, oh, I like the cut of her jib. Oh, that one. Oh, she's got her head screwed on. So yeah, they are all about cutting taxes. Meanwhile, Sunak and Jeremy Hunt know that taxes need to stay high so they have the income to pay interest payments on the ballooning national debt. That debt will stay high until we lose a few of the oldies, because millions of them are clogging up expensive hospital beds and drawing down pensions. Or we could get millions more young people in to work, pay tax, and pick up the tab. So snuff out the old people or hike up immigration. Those are your options. Because the shortfall of young people, or labour shortage as it's more commonly known, has exploded due to a variety of poor Tory governance, from Brexit, losing freedom of movement, to the prohibitive cost of childcare, to brain drain, to stagnant wage growth, to demonising immigrants, demonising refugees, dismissing the concerns of young people as entitled whippersnappers who need to cut back on avocados and Netflix, and the housing crisis. But you'll be delighted to know that the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, has ignored all of that and instead pretended that it's just lazy dole scroungers who just don't want to get a job, and he's gonna force them. Just a little reminder, most people on universal credit already have a job. But you knew that already, didn't you? Anyway, that's it for now. No word yet on when the other half of the two Sues is up. But if it's anything like her speech at the National Conservatism Conference, prepare yourselves to move effortlessly from Conf to Mein Kampf. Till then, I'm out. I need a short-term decision for my darker present. Peace.